John chapter 19. Hence, then Pilate took Jesus and scourged him. And the warfarers were braiding a crown of thorns, and one set it on his head. And they cast a purple raiment about him, and came to him and said, Be joyful, Regent of the Jews. And they gave him cheek slaps. Then Pilate came out to the outside again, and says to them, Perceive, I lead him outside to you, so that you may know that I find not one guilt cause in him. Hence Jesus came out to the outside, carrying the thorny crown and the purple raiment. And he says to them, Perceive the human. Hence, when the archpriests and the subminials perceived him, they cried, Stake him, stake him. And Pilate says to them, You take him and stake him, for not do I find a guilt cause in him. Then answered the Jews, We have a law, and according to the law he is indebted to deaden away, since he made himself to be the Son of God. Hence, when Pilate heard this word, he was made to fear much more, and came again into the praetorium, and said to Jesus, From whence are you? Yea, you. But Jesus gave him not an answer. Pilate says to him, Do you not speak with me? Do you not perceive that I have the authority to unloosen you, and have authority to stake you? Then Jesus answered him, Not do you have authority against me, yea, not one, if it was not one having been given to you from above. Therefore the one having given me up to you has greater valence. Out of this Pilate sought to unloosen him, but the Jews said, So if you unloosen this one, you are not a friend of Caesar. Everyone making himself to a regent, counterwords to Caesar. Hence Pilate, hearing these words, led Jesus out and took seat on the podium, toward the place being called Stone Bestrewed, in Hebrew Golgotha. But it was the preparation of implement for the Passover. The hour was about the 6th, and he said to the Jews, Perceive your regent. But they said, lift away this one, stake him. Then says Pilate to them, Shall I stake your regent? The archpriests answered, Not do we have a regent except Caesar. Hence he then gave him up to them, so that he may be staked. But those having taken Jesus led him away, and by himself seizing the stake, he came out into the place being called Skull's Place, which in Hebrew is called Golgotha, where they staked him, and with him 2 others, from thence and from thence, but in the middle Jesus. But Pilate wrote also the title and set it on the stake. But it was written, Jesus the Nazarene, the Regent of the Jews. Hence many of the Jews read this title, since the place was near the city where Jesus was staked, and it was written in Hebrew, Roman, Hellenic. Hence the archpriests of the Jews said to Pilate, Do not write the Regent of the Jews, but that one said, I am Regent of the Jews. Pilate answered, What I have written, I have written. Hence the warfarers who staked Jesus took his raiments and made 4 parts to each warfarer, 1 part. But the tunic was unsewn, for it was wholly thoroughly woven out of the threads from above. Hence they said to themselves, Not should we tear it, but have a lance cast concerning it, whose it will be. This happened so that the writ may be completely fulfilled. They parted thoroughly my raiments for themselves, and on my raimenture they cast the lot. Hence that abides, the warfarers did this. But there had taken stand by the stake of Jesus his mother, and the sister of his mother, Miriam, the wife of Clopas, and Miriam the Magdalene. But Jesus, having perceived the mother and the learning one whom he loved, having taken stand by her, and he says to the mother, Woman, perceive, there is your son. Thereafter he says to the learning one, Perceive, there is your mother. And from that hour on the learning one took her with him into his own. After this, Jesus, perceiving that all has already been finished, so that the writ may be completely fulfilled, he says, I thirst. But an implement lay there, swollen with vinegar. Hence, setting a sponge swollen with vinegar about a hyssop stick, they brought it to his mouth. Hence, when he had taken the vinegar, he said, It is finished, and inclining the head, he gave up the spirit. Hence the Jews, because it was the preparation of implement, lest the bodies abide on the stake in the Sabbath. For great was that day of the Sabbath. Hence ask Pilate that their legs may be cracked down, and they be lifted away. Hence the warfarers came that abides, and they cracked down the legs of the foremost one, and those of the other, the one having been staked together with him. But having come on to Jesus, they found him already having deadened, and they did not crack down his legs. But one of the warfarers perceived his side with the lance, and straightway blood and water came out. And the one having seen it has testified it, and his testimony is true. And that one perceives that he says true things, so that also you, yea, you may faith. For this came to be so that the writ may be completely fulfilled, not will a bone from him be battered together. And again, an ulterior writ says, they will eye him into whom they have stung out. But after this, Joseph, the one from Arimathea, being a learning one of Jesus, but one having secreted himself because of the fear of the Jews, asked Pilate so that he may lift the body of Jesus, and Pilate conceded it. Hence they came and lifted him. But Nicodemus came also, having come to Jesus at night the time before, having a mingling of myrrh and aloe, about 100 pounds. Hence they took the body of Jesus and bound it together with the aromatics by means of garment strips, according as it was the custom by the Jews to entomb. But there, in the realm of the place where he was staked, was a garden, and in the garden a new sepulchre, in which not, yea, but even not yet one, was as having been laid to rest. Hence, because of the Jews, by preparation of implement, and since the sepulchre was near, it was there where they laid Jesus to rest.